Good afternoon and welcome to Copper and Ink. Today we're going to discuss inks. Going to do a review of what I have, what I'm looking to add, and an exciting delivery that came in the mail this week. So to begin with, the current inks that I have and that I use most often are currently this Iroshizuku Fuyugaki by Pilot. This is a ink that I keep in a Lamy Safari. You've seen me use that on this channel a few times if you've watched any of the other videos. This is a nice combination. I keep it in this Popov leather cover around a Leuchtturm 1917 notebook. In that same lineup, I also have the Yamaguri, which is another Pilot ink there, and these bottles are nice. Very attractive, nice sitting on the bottle. They feel like it's an ink of some substance and one that is a quality item. Some of the newer additions are these Noodler inks. I have the Brevity Blue and the Polar Green. Both of these were specifically purchased for the litmus test that we're running our inks and papers through. We also have this ink here. I'm not even sure who it was made by. It was one we got before we started going through this, and the we in here is my wife and I. It's a dark blue with bright purple. I'm not even sure that we've cracked this one open. With the amount of glitter that was in it, we were a little nervous to put it in a pen. May not even have had a pen to put it in, but you can see the sparkle through there. This could be a fun one to try out and sample. Diamine inks were one of the first ones that I bought in multiple colors. I got the Oxford Blue, the Amber, the Aurora Borealis, Meadow, Oxblood, and Imperial Purple. And the Aurora Borealis quickly became one of my favorite inks to write with. I carry it in my everyday carry notebook in a TWSBI 580 inked up in there. It's a one I use a lot, and again, this has got some bit of a slower dry time, so I might end up making a change to that lineup at some point. I started using the Oxblood recently in a Jinhao X159, and that's been a nice combination. I enjoy writing with this pen, and for the price to quality of writing, it's a hard one to beat. Also have the Blue Black from Diamine, and this is the archival quality, the sparkling shadows. Again, it's got a fair amount of glitter that's in it. It is a little harder to get moving. Another recent addition was this Platinum Shaokuru, reportedly one of the darkest blacks that you can get on ink right now. I have it planned to go into a pen that's on order, and it'll be part of a blacked out notebook lineup that I'm going to put together with a Endless Stealth notebook and this ink and a black pen and eventually a black cover. Looking at one that would potentially go on the outside of that Stealth that may finish off that blackout notebook style kit that I was looking at. So haven't written with this yet, but looking forward to it. Pelikan 4001 Violet, and having that in extra fine Platinum Preppy that I did a eyedropper conversion on. And I'm not sure if it's the ink, the pen, or maybe it's the combination together, but this has been a writing instrument that I've been choosing over some of my others in my lineup to write with on a daily basis. So that has been a pleasant surprise, both from the ink and from the Preppy with that extra fine nib on there. And then last but not least, these two Bon Me glittering inks. We have the Saturn and the Neutron, 17 inks. And if you've been doing this hobby for any length of time, you can probably understand that 17 inks just isn't enough. We need a little bit more in there. So how do we go about doing that? Well, I could continue buying these full-size bottles and add to it periodically, and that is going to happen. But what I went ahead and did, I went to Ink Journal, and I got this package in the mail this week, and it was in the $29.99 range. But what came in it was 30 samples of ink. So I thought we'd take a couple minutes today and go through and look at the inks that we got and kind of do a little bit of an inventory. I got a couple of swatching ideas. I have a coloring ink test book with the nice paper in there for doing the test swatches and being able to keep things nice and organized. But I also have in my notebook collection an Archer and Olive notebook with some pretty heavy duty paper. I'm not sure what it is offhand. I'd have to look it up, see if I can figure out what I bought many moons ago. Thought it might make a good ink swatching journal. So might do a little bit of a testing and see how the inks behave on the two systems. Maybe run them in parallel for a little bit and see if we find our preferred way to document the inks that we have. So let's go through these inks. There's 30 of them in this package, and we'll see what we got and then talk about our plan going forward. So this is an Andurilium Flapjack Octopus Orange. And this is a very thin ink. If you look inside here, it rolls around pretty quickly, very fluid, and a nice bright color to it. So this would be a pretty one. I do like orange, one of my favorite colors. So. Also have a Colorburst Season 8, and this is a halo ring. And in the bottle, it's a nice blue here. See, it does flow pretty good, but it is a little bit thicker. In the wine or whiskey world, you might say that it has legs on it a little bit more than this other one. That'll be another solid color. You can never have too many blue inks. And as a result of some of our testing, I have been looking for maybe a competitor to put into my TWSBI ink in that same color family that would maybe dry a little faster. And one of these samples, the Colorverse Korea Special Dokdo, and it is a nice teal color. And if you spin that around and you let it go, that one's got even more legs than the other one. A little bit of a thicker ink. It's hard to show you if I put it upright. But another nice color in that one. And this one here is our Diamine Wax Seal. Nice red ink. And this one really does coat the inside of this vial pretty well. Next up, we have a Dominant Industry Winter Pine. And this one is rather thin, kind of like that first one. It stays on the sides of the test tube here a little bit longer, but it is a very thin ink. A little bit of a bluish green appearance here in the bottle. And if you notice, it does have a little residue that's sitting down there. So this one might need a little shake ahead of time to get it going. The next one is the Dominant Industries Les Nymphaeus. Must be a series of inks there, and it's the Les Nuages. Not sure what language that is. I am almost guaranteed to be pronouncing that wrong. But another nice shade of blue, and a slightly thinner ink, but it does have some good adherence to the outside of the bottle, some resistance to flowing down. And I'm not sure if it's coming up in the camera, but as you can see it flowing down, you can see the pieces of the pigment and flowing in there. So those are things that'll be catching light when it's used. Looks like another fun one to try. Ferris Wheel Press is the next one up, with a little Robinia. And this is a purplish ink, and again, this one is very resistant to sticking to the sides of the bottle. Almost, if not as much, maybe a little less than this one when you compare them side by side. I've heard good things about Ferris Wheel Press, and this will be the first ink of theirs that I use. The next entry is Inkabara, number 235, Pastel Violet. And another nice looking ink in that purple family that we'll try out. Inkabara, number 13, Granite Green. And this one probably needs some shaking on. If you saw that there, it had a lot of pigment and color that stayed there in the bottom. Now we can get it flowing around. Nice deep dark green. Be another fun one to get on some paper. Next up is the Ink Institute Wenhu line, and this is like a brownish color here in the bottle. A little orange hue to it as well. That'll be a interesting combination. Maybe might be something that looks good with a brown setup. This very vibrant orange, Leonardo Officina Italiana, Arancio Tarocco. Terrible Italian accent there, don't hold that against me, please. Yeah, but this ink definitely holds to the outside edge of that bottle. See how that holds up when it's put on paper. The next ink in here is the Octopus Fluids Aubergine, and it is a slightly more viscous purple and does have a nice hue to it as it goes through the sun, as it's hitting through the window here. But it's be interesting to see how that reacts on paper with that little thicker ink consistency to it. The Octopus Fluids Brilliant Rot. So nice thick red, again a little more viscous. So it'll be interesting, and a lot of this you're gonna hear me saying is gonna be interesting. Some things I'm thinking about comparing and seeing the lack of viscosity, or the, I guess, higher viscosity in the thicker inks, resistance to flow, versus those that are very thin. And does it saturate different? Does it behave different coming out of a pen? Those are all things that I've never even considered, and as I'm sitting here looking at these, the number of tests and things to compare is whirring through my mind. Entry rather in the sample pack is the Octopus Write and Draw Petrol Axolotl, and this is another one of the teal colors, a little more of a blue-green, but also very viscous, sticking to the outside. And again, it's a ink that I may compare everything in that family and use as an option to put in my TWSBI. It's either that or I'm gonna have to buy a lot of platinum preppies to put these in and see how they behave. Pannonia Ink Laboratories L17, and this is a blue purple, maybe a little more purple than it is blue, but it is definitely not a true pure purple. That is another interesting addition to test out. We have Push Pull Vampire, and as the name suggests, it is a reddish color, probably intended to be blood red. It does coat the inside of the bottle pretty well. And this happens to be the only one that we got that was a duplicate in this 30 pack. We have 2 versions of that. And Robert Oster, heard lots of things about this particular brand of ink being a nice one. And this ink, the Blue Martini, will be a nice sample to introduce me to this brand. I've never, again, used most of these brands in here are new to me. So this one, it's kind of in the middle as far as the viscosity goes, how much is hanging to the walls. And then we have from Robert Oster as well, the Brandy. And this is a yellow brown, maybe some orange in there. And again, it flows pretty cleanly off of the sidewalls, so a little on the thinner side, but that could be another interesting ink to test out. Next up is Sailor. Again, another ink that I've heard a lot about but haven't tried myself. Sailor Vermont, and it is this deep pine green. And again, it's a pretty thin ink. Not a lot of anything left at the bottom. Green is good, so it'll be a fun one to try. This is the Sailor Uramiku Hana Gokoro, and that is a very dark ink. Hard to tell if that's going to be a navy blue or more of a black, but I'll see what I can find to display what these colors are supposed to be as we are going through these. As it thins out, you almost got a darker navy grayish hue to that one. And this is the Scribbo Classico Sepia, and it is very reminiscent of that brown sepia color that you get in like the classic photographs. It is a nice looking ink, and it makes me think of this pen here. Watching it flow around there in the light, that might be a good one to put in this Asvine that I have, that I cleaned out and have not re-inked, so it is needing something to go inside it, so this might be that ink. Next up from Scribbo as well is Verde Mediterraneo, another on that teal spectrum, and this one a little more green than it is blue on that teal side. And we have Laban Aries, and that is a nice red color, and it is resistant enough to sticking to the edges that it's hard to get a good color on this one, but it is definitely a red, maybe more of a maroonish red kind of color. It'll be good to see that one on paper. Here's Tom Studio Cassis, and that is a reddish burgundy color. That is nice. I like that. If the dry time on this is good and quicker, that may be a possibility to replace the Oxblood in my pen there, as I'd rather have it dry quicker than slower in that daily kind of writing environment. And this one is Troublemaker Freedom Park Rosé, and these have been in here for probably, I don't know, at least 15-20 minutes, if not more, upright in this holder, and that ink is still on the outside coating that, so whether that means it will dirty up the inside of a pen, kind of gum things up, or be a little more bold, that will be something when we do the swatching to take a look at. Next up is the Van Diemen's ink, and this one, it's got a great name, the Laughing Kookaburra Crest. I've never seen a Kookaburra crest, let alone a laughing kookaburra, but apparently it's in this color family, and this ink is very hard to get a good read on what color it's going to be. Something in that tealish family, it thinks, maybe with a little bit of a purple undertones to it, but it looks like it's going to be a little more of a darker ink, a little more saturated, but it moves around so much it's hard to get a good read on it. If you catch it just a little bit in there, it almost looks like a gray color, so I will definitely want to see a picture of that, kind of what it's supposed to look like, get that ahead of time. And the last couple here come from Wearing Ghoul, another brand I've heard a lot of. so I was happy to get some of their inks in this set. This is the Wearingeul Infinite Cube, and it's a reddish brown color and very resistant to flow, clinging to the outside of the violet. The Great Gatsby is the next entry, and it is a purplish ink. That will be a nice one to try out. And the last ink is the Wearingeul Wayfarer. And besides fountain pens, another thing I like to do is wayfaring. And if you know what it is, welcome. We have fellow hobbies. And if not, it's just another avenue of nerdom. It has to do with mapping and finding points of interest that are used in some location-based games that you may have heard of over time. But Wearingeul Wayfarer. A little bit of a teal family there, but this one a little on the darker blue side. So some nice variety, some nice options. The 30 ink sample pack. So that wraps it up for the inks that we're going to look at today. If you have suggestions on swatching methods, something that's worked for you, something you've seen be successful, and a good way to maintain that, whether it's a coloring or another option. I'm told Wearingeul has a swatching setup as well, maybe something worth looking into, or if this Archer and Olive notebook might be a good try. And it would always be good, of course, in whatever notebook it is that you use on a regular basis, such as this Leuchtturm, to see how those inks behave on your most often used paper. I have a glass dip pen coming to do the samples on these, and then we'll do the swatching. It'll be a lot easier than trying to clean a fountain pen every single time. It makes my head spin just thinking of cleaning it that many times. So hopefully the glass is a lot easier to work with for this purpose. Well, thanks for tuning in to this edition of Copper and Ink, where we examined the contents of my Ink Journal 30-piece sample pack. Have a great day.